Greetings, Benjamin J. from BENZTRAINZ with another in the series. Well, I'm in the workshop today. Quite the salubrious day here in Illinois. Have the windows open in the train room. Anyway, I was going through the parts, and here is a 666 bezel that I found. I did a video on this some months ago, or weeks ago. I got a really terrible condition 666 that was just eaten alive with oxide. And this is the bezel off of it. You can see it's got some damage, but overall it's in fairly good condition, except, as you see, the number board is in it, but the lens is not. And it's got a ding right there where it was very likely dropped, and that's what knocked that lens out. So I'm going to try the epoxy and see if I can just pour a new lens into this bezel. So the first thing I have to do is, you can see this is the old style that has a snap-in retainer for the bulb. There's no threads. It literally just snaps into position. It takes a very small globe bulb to fit this. I'm trying to do this so you can keep it centered in the camera. Anyway, the first thing I have to do, of course, is fill this hole on the other side. So I'm going to take a piece of black tape and just put a piece of tape over that hole and that connector, and that will prevent the epoxy from flowing through and should make a little effective dam to keep it in position. So I'm just going to put some tape down in this, make sure it's stuck down well. I've got a little Q-tip here. Just rub that tape down so that epoxy can't flow past it. And that'll also prevent it from getting on this connector. Because the only real way to replace this is to find a lucite rod, the correct diameter, cut it and then glue it in there. Anyway, this is going to be a very inexpensive and quick way to replace that, I hope. So, Gorilla Glue, clear. Now you can find resins, epoxy resins, that are actually crystal clear. They use them for decoupage and furniture and things like that as a finish. And it dries absolutely crystal clear with no bubbles in it. This, on the other hand, is just simply 5-minute epoxy. So 2 equal parts, and this little cardboard square, I save these out of Hostess cupcakes because they're waxed on one side, and they are absolutely excellent for mixing epoxy. And I'm using a dental spatula. And the problem with epoxy, a lot of people will use a toothpick and they stir it. And as you stir it, the footprint keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you have to go scraping the epoxy back towards the center. With a small spatula, you can just basically advance it, moving it up and down, and what I'm doing is just pulling or pushing the epoxy around, and it blends it and mixes it really well, really thoroughly, without stirring it and spreading it out all over the place. And you can keep it in one spot, which makes it really easy to use because you have a lot of it right here in one place. And as you can see, it's just staying there, and I'm just basically moving it back and forth, mixing this epoxy. Now this is 5-minute epoxy, and actually the longer you mix it, the quicker it will set. But 5 minutes, it becomes a solid, and after about 10 minutes, it is actually hardened enough to use it. As long as you're not trying to glue a handle back on a coffee cup. It'll do that. It'll take 24 hours. Alright, so I've got this mixed. All I'm going to do, I hope you can see this, all I'm going to do is scoop some of this up with the spatula and literally drip it into that hole. Now, I've never done this before. I did it on the 400 and the 999, but I've never done this on a 666 bezel. But it's easy, and the nice thing about it, of course, is you don't have to go looking for a piece of clear plastic rod. Now, it's going to take a lot of this, even though it's just a little round hole. It is rather deep. And as you see, I'm just letting it run down in there. You don't have to do anything to this once it's in there. And there'll be some bubbles in it, but it won't make any difference. It's actually quite transparent. All right, almost there. And it's self-leveling. It'll leave a nice flat surface. And this will probably be the last glob. All right, it's coming up almost to the edge of the bezel. I'll add just a little bit more. All right. And that is it. Now you just let it set, and it cures rather quickly. And like I said, in about 5 minutes it turns to a solid, and in about 10-15 minutes in most applications, unless you're going to be putting a lot of force on it, it's ready to hold. A good set is 24 hours, of course. Anyway, just want to see how much this is going to settle, and there's probably enough room for one more. So I'll probably push up on this from the back, and that'll bring it right up flush. Let's see if you can see this. So as you see, once that solidifies, I will have a new lens in this 666 bezel without having to do anything. I mean, literally pour it in there, let it set, and I'll do a follow-up video on this. I brought it in here. I've got to solder the wire onto it and find a light bulb for it, of course. But as you see, that is in there, and it's settling a bit, so I might put one more drop on it. Anyway, I just wanted to do a quick video on how to do this. It's really, really simple, and like I said, it's self-leveling. And you hold this absolutely still. I'll just put it down and let it set for 5 minutes, and I will have a new lens in this 666 bezel. So like I said, I'll do a follow-up video. Anyway, as always, if you have any questions, feel free to drop me an email, BENZTRAINZ@gmail.com. And as always, thank you for watching.